Hi guys, welcome back. This is episode 3 of my public diary. For those of you who are new here, my name's Andrea. Today we're going to talk about confidence. My thoughts on confidence, what I think creates real confidence. Look, I'm not the most confident person on the planet, but I'm definitely more confident than I used to be. I think I'm in a place now where I can tell people how to be a little more confident. So yeah, that's my credibility for you guys. So what does it really mean to be confident? I feel like there's people who are truly and like really confident, and then there's another group of people who appear to be like confident but actually aren't. I feel like usually those people who appear to be confident or whatever are people with like really big egos who are very conceited. And then you have this other group of people who are actually really confident. And if you pay close attention to like these different groups of people, I think what differentiates an actual like confident person versus somebody who's not is that their confidence comes from the inside. I honestly don't think this is talked about enough. Now, some of you might be like, I already knew that. Well, I didn't know, okay? Isn't it interesting how in today's society, we aren't really encouraged to seek confidence from within ourselves? Like, in fact, we're encouraged to do the opposite, to seek confidence from external things. Like, our confidence in many ways is dependent on our accomplishments, the things that we do, how much approval we get from other people. Even when it comes to like feeling good about yourself, it's a lot of times it's dependent on like the type of job that you have, which again is something external. Even on social media, you're encouraged to post pictures, right? That's great. But you won't feel like your picture's worthy unless it gets likes from people or comments, right? In many ways, our confidence has to come from external things. And I think this is why it's harder than ever for people to build true confidence. I was watching a podcast, Diary of a CEO, the Stephen Bartlett, I think that's his name. He had a guest there, like this doctor who was talking about this. And he said how back in the day, people didn't struggle so much with confidence because they were spending so much time with themselves. Like there wasn't like technology or whatever to distract them. And they were with themselves so much that they knew who they were, and they also weren't exposed to as many people as we are nowadays, you know, thanks to social media, which is great, but in a lot of ways is bad. And as a result, like their confidence was built within them because they always spent a lot of time with themselves, right? They were very focused internally as opposed to externally. I thought about this and I'm like, wow, this is so true. And it's such a small thing, but it really does explain a lot. Like I was thinking about my parents. They're honestly some of the most confident people I know, especially my dad. He just kind of lives his life however he wants. He doesn't care what people think. He will wear the same clothes for years and years, and he could buy nicer ones, I don't know, designer things, but he just doesn't really care. All he cares about is his own approval. He doesn't care about anyone else's approval, but I don't think he was ever raised or was in an environment that encouraged him to seek external validation. He had a lot of time to like reflect on himself and just really love who he is. And as a result, he's just a very confident person. Nowadays, it's really hard to find like a truly confident person. Most people who are confident is because of their accomplishments or the things that they own and have. For a long time, I thought confidence is just something you could build by doing hard things, challenging things, accomplishing things, right? And I think this is still true, but it doesn't build true confidence. True confidence is something that's just rooted in very, very deep self-worth. You have to really love yourself. You have to be able to appreciate yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, whatever. If you don't feel like you're worthy, it doesn't matter how many things you do, how many things you accomplish, how much money you have, you'll never be truly confident. I think I've been pretty clear about confidence and how it needs to come from the inside. So now we can talk about how to build this real confidence. First things first, you need to build your feelings of self-worth. You need to feel worthy to become confident. A big reason I think people don't follow through with all these like self-development stuff is because they don't feel worthy. They don't feel worthy of being able to accomplish these things, or they just don't think they're capable. To build feelings of self-worth, you need to overcome any unresolved issues you have with yourself, whether it's a trauma or you have these like negative core beliefs that you grew up with. You need to resolve it. If you don't do it, no one else is going to do it for you. The second step is to focus on getting to know yourself. A big reason people struggle with confidence is because they don't know who they are. So like I was talking about earlier, confidence is something that comes from the inside. So if your life is focused on external things, it's going to be really hard to know yourself. We're always living outside of us. A lot of us will spend a bunch of time on the internet, whether it's social media or any other platform, and we're, again, focused on the outside and not the inside. So it makes sense, in my opinion, why a lot of people don't know who they are, because you're never spending time with yourself. And it sounds weird because you're like, well, I am with myself all the time. But it's like when you go to class, think of it this way, and you're on your phone the whole time. Are you really in class? So maybe you're there, but if your focus isn't on the lecture, it's as if you weren't even there. And same thing goes for like us and figuring ourselves out. If you're not really with yourself with zero distractions, it's going to be really hard to get to know who you are, the things you like, your strengths and weaknesses. I think a lot of people think they have an accurate like self-perception, but many times we're just depending it on what other people say about us or what we think we are. Focus on limiting your distractions when you can. I'm not saying like you should never be distracted, but maybe turn off the music for a drive. Let some thoughts come to the surface. Try to reflect in the evening. This can be really helpful. Like before you go to bed, think about what you enjoyed about your day. Reflect on the things that are constantly on your mind, because usually the things you think about are telling you something about who you are, or maybe reflect on your dreams. Once you're able to know who you are, the next step is to stop relying on external validation and do things for yourself instead. If your confidence depends on external things, whether that's owning like really cool materialistic items, or maybe your confidence is dependent on the amount of praise that you receive from people, it'll never be enough because you're always going to build a tolerance to it. So how exactly do you do things for yourself, for your own internal validation? You need to focus your goals and whatever you want to accomplish on something that ultimately comes back to you and aligns with your values. Somebody who's focused on doing things for themselves, for instance, would be like, I don't know, they're doing this job because they want to help people and learn new skills for their own good. Like maybe you want to learn how to code because like you want to see what you're capable of. It's going to make you feel good, right? But you shouldn't be doing it to get someone else's validation and so you can have bragging rights, if you know what I mean. Someone who does things for themselves are doing things for their own sense of accomplishment. It's time to do things that fulfill your soul, okay? Have you guys noticed that confident people tend to just be really happy? I don't think it's because confidence just creates happiness. I think it's because they do things that make them happy. And I don't think enough of us do things that really bring us joy. Because there's a difference between doing things for yourself versus doing things that fulfill your soul. It's really simple. The more you do things that make you happy, the easier it is to be happy with yourself and life. And as a result, you just become more confident. So this next one is really important, okay, you guys? Be authentic. Now, this phrase gets thrown a lot So I'm sorry, I'm like talking about it too. You can never truly be confident without being authentic. That's just what it is. Being authentic requires two things. One, you have to be able to know yourself and like your values. And two, you have to be able to have boundaries. If you want to really become authentic, you need to be comfortable with expressing what's on your mind. Now, this doesn't mean you should say things to like induce violence or say harmful things. I'm not saying you should just say whatever the heck you want. No. But if your opinion is different than someone else's on something, it's okay for it to be different. You can stand your ground. It's one thing too, being open to learn different perspectives. But it's another thing to just let people think for you. You know, you have to be able to think for yourself. That's a huge part of being authentic. You have to be able to listen to other people, but ultimately see if it actually resonates with what you believe. And that's why I talked about earlier in the video, it's so important to know yourself, because if you don't know yourself, how do you know if you're ever being authentic? You're just gonna be a follower. And that's what a lot of people do, is just follow what other people think, whatever other people do. I think people who are truly confident are being who they were meant to be, and they're not trying to replicate anybody or copy anyone. Stop being envious of others and understand you're on your own journey. So I was listening to the Huberman Lab podcast, as I always do, a couple weeks ago, and he had this psychologist as a guest, and he was talking about this study that they did on college students, and they were trying to see what was the most common emotion that they experience. To the surprise of many, the most common feeling that they would experience was feelings of envy. It wasn't stress. Like, I feel like a lot of us would think, oh yeah, everyone's stressed. But no, it was actually feelings of envy. And it was really interesting because the study was done on students. What university was this? I think Yale. I forgot. But basically, there was a lot of feelings of envy. And this study really stood out to me because it's so true. And, you know, whether or not people want to acknowledge that they're envious of other people, like, that's a whole other thing. But I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people are experiencing envy, but they're not even aware of it. I don't think they're doing it with any malice or bad intentions, but we are constantly comparing ourselves, especially social media. Like, it'll encourage us to compare our lives to those of others, and it's something you can't help but do. And what's interesting is we will always compare ourselves in a relative way as opposed to like objectively. Like, instead of being like, man, my life is really good, like I have a roof over my head, I have a car, a decent job, I have a family, compared to so many people who don't have these things, we're comparing ourselves to people who are like in the same situations as us. So if we see somebody doing, quote, better, we start to feel like our situation isn't enough. Like the college kids at Yale, they were envious, you know, they were envious of their peers. I don't know, maybe they wish they could be at Harvard. Instead of being able to really appreciate the fact that they get to go to an Ivy League school. You guys get what I mean? Like, there's so much envy out there. Truly confident people, rarely are they envious, you know? They're able to appreciate other people's strengths, especially. Whatever someone else does doesn't affect them, whether it's something bigger than what they're doing, whether they're making more money than them. Because when you're truly confident, you're self-assured. You should be able to just understand that everyone's on their own path. We're all unique individuals, and you know, everyone's goals look differently, but that doesn't mean some goals are better than others. If you feel like someone's doing something better than you, it's your own issue. That's just rooted in some insecurity, at least in my opinion. And lastly, you guys, learn to praise yourself. Have you guys noticed that confident people usually have parents who raise them pretty well? Like, many times people have an advantage. That's just the truth. They've always been confident, and it's because their parents raised them in a way that had like the perfect balance of validation and love or whatever. And a big part of it is that their parents gave them praise, right? Not all of us are lucky to have emotionally intelligent parents, but that doesn't mean you can't learn to praise yourself. You have to be able to be proud of who you are and have compassion for yourself. And I think a big part of this is praising yourself. Before I end this conversation, I just also want to remind you guys that confidence or building confidence is a lifelong journey. You don't just become confident one day and then you don't have to like work towards being confident. It's something that you work on every single day. So just keep that in mind. Don't be too hard on yourself. And I hope you guys found this video useful. Let me know in the comments down below. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.